All right, welcome back. Section 4.5, multiplying polynomials. So, big fun. There's really good news here. So I hope you can hear the good news through all the crazy that's also about to happen. There's really nothing new here. Okay, everything we're going to do in this section is something we've already done. There just is going to be more of it. Okay, I want you to hear that again. Everything we're about to do here is something we've already done. There's just more of it. So we can do this. So let's start with a pretty simple bit of multiplication. Okay, and trust me, compared to some of the stuff that's coming, this is pretty simple. I have 7x squared times a set of parentheses. Now, if we ignore that x squared, this would just be a distributive property problem. Take the 7 times both pieces. So, even with the x squared, that's all we're going to do. We're just going to distribute the 7x squared times both parts. So I like to write it out, all the multiplication. 7x squared times 3x, and 7x squared times, and I'm going to use the minus sign with the 5, times negative 5. That way, when I get down here, 7 times 3 is 21. I add my exponents. 2 plus 1 gives me x cubed. 7 times a negative 5 gives me a negative 35 here, and I have x squared. And that's it. That we're done multiplying that one. So if you use those minus signs with the number that's after them, when you do your multiplication, it will tell you what sign to have here. Okay, so if this had been a negative 7, we would have had negative 7 times negative 5, and it would have told me to put a plus 35 there. All right, so we've done that. That's really not very new. But we're going to keep making this bigger and bigger and bigger. So really what I like to say here is that what we're going to do is what I like to say is the distributive property on steroids. Everything in the first times everything in the second. So here's an example. This one's still not too terribly big. I'll do a really big one on the next board for you. But this is a this is still actually kind of small. So I have 2x minus 1 times 6x plus 3. Notice this time there's nothing in between those parentheses. There's no addition or subtraction. This is multiplication because these parentheses are smashed together. So I'm going to do exactly what my directions up there say. I'm going to do everything in the first times everything in the second. So 2x times 6x, 2x times 3. Negative 1 times 6x, and negative 1 times 3. And so you can see I've written out all the answers that we get here. 2 times 6 is 12. Since I'm multiplying, I add those exponents. 1 plus 1 makes 2. 2 times 3 is 6, and we just have the x. Negative 1 times 6 is a negative 6, and again we have an x. And negative 1 times 3 is a minus 3. All right, so then all that's left is to combine some like terms. And now in this particular example, something really kind of nice happened. We have a plus 6x and a minus 6x, so those basically get rid of each other. Actually, they do get rid of each other. They make 0, right? 6 and negative 6 make 0. So we end up with just 12x and minus 3. And so that's the process we're going to go through. We multiply everything out, and then we're going to combine any like terms that we can. Okay, again, be careful. You can only put things together by adding or subtracting if they are like terms. So, don't try and do like this 12 and that 6. You can't do that. They're not like terms. This one's x squared, that one's x. So, that's the basics. I'm going to throw one more big example on the board for you here. It's going to be a lot of fun. And so, yeah, well, let me get that. All right, so here is my last example. 3x minus 1 times 2x squared minus 6x minus 2. Again, remember the directions. Everything in the first times everything in the second. So you can see I wrote it all out. I ran out of room over here, so I had to kind of wrap it down there a little bit, but it's all here. I have 3x times 2x squared. 3x times the minus 6x. And 3x times the minus 2. And then I did the negative 1. Negative 1 times 2x squared. Negative 1 times negative 6x. And negative 1 times negative 2. All right, so I wrote it all out so I can see all the pieces. And now I'm going to go through and carefully do the multiplication. Again, remember, when you multiply things with the same base, add those exponents together and be careful with the signs. So 3 times 2 is 6. 1 and 2 gives me x cubed. 3 times negative 6 gives me negative 18. 1 plus 1 gives me x squared. 3 times negative 2 is negative 6, and I just have the x. 1 times 2 is negative 2. I have an x squared. Negative 1 times negative 6 is 6, so I get 6 with the x. And negative 1 times negative 2 is a plus 2. So that gets us here. And now we need to combine our like terms. So the first thing I notice is there aren't any other x cubes, so I just bring the 6x cubed down. But for the x squared terms, I actually have those in 2 separate places. I have a negative 18x squared and a negative 2x squared, so I put those together. Negative 18 and negative 2 makes negative 20. Remember, when you're adding and subtracting, don't touch the exponents. And then the other set of like terms I have actually end up being really nice. We have a negative 6x and a plus 6x. Those are opposites, which means they just go away. So you'll notice I don't have any just plain x's down here. And then I bring down 2 because it's my only remaining like term. And that is multiplying polynomials. So good luck and have fun.